Back with you here on Gridiron to talk the Red Hurricane Report. And Larry Kelly will tell you all about his Newcastle High Red Hurricane. Larry, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, as you know, I am a Red Hurricane, and I always keep the faith, and there's some reason to do so this week. They end up losing the game 22-13 to Chartiers Valley, but it was a highly competitive game. And at this stage of the program, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the ability to be able to compete. And they did, not just on the scoreboard, but I'm looking at the statistics. Chartiers Valley had 16 first downs, Newcastle 13. Chartiers Valley rushed the ball for 156 yards. The Hurricane rushed it for 146. Newcastle threw the ball for 105 yards. Chartiers Valley 181. So total yards 300 to 234. It was a competitive game. You first got to play competitive games before you can start winning. Now, you covered the game. I read your column. A bad snap on a punt in the end zone cost them a safety. And it looked like the Hurricane was driving the ball down the field at the end of the game. And a young man picks it off and goes 77 yards the other way. So highly competitive game. I'm sure Coach Robinson, when he looks at the tape, has a lot of things to be positive about in this game. And, that's where the program's at. It's not about wins and losses at this point. It isn't. Are we getting incrementally better? Are we doing little things incrementally better every game? And, if you are, then the program's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, that's always been a staple with Stacy Robinson, is he would have a comment that would say, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're not staying the same. And I would ask him that after any games that I've covered or any of our preview spots for our preview capsules. Despite the losing streak, do you feel that the program is making strides? Are there improvements being made? And are you getting and he always says, we're getting better, just it might not show it on the scoreboard in the end result, but, we are making strides. We are getting better. We are doing some things well. Probably the thing that goes sideways for them is they can't sustain anything. They might play well for a drive or a quarter or something, but, there's 4 quarters to a game, 48 minutes, as long as it doesn't go overtime. And Newcastle just hasn't strung enough of that game together this year outside of Summit Academy, of course.
Listen, I've coached a long time in different sports, and that is probably the one factor that you touched on that is most important in the program, and that is consistency. When you're not winning a lot of games, you have young men or young women who play really well one game, and then the next game look like a completely different player. It's the consistency of your play that will dictate the quality of your program. When you get game in and game out, your team and your players on a consistent level, a consistently high level, that's when you have it turned around. But, any team, any player in one game can look really, really good. But the question will become, will that same player, will that same team carry it over to the next game? I've been there and done that with good teams and with teams that were not so good. And the teams that were not so good, you have a player that you think has turned the corner, and it looks like this player is going to be someone you can count on every game. And then all of a sudden, the next game, that player disappears. And you can't have that in a winning program. You have to be playing at a consistently high level, your players. So, I think that's where Newcastle's at right now. Like you said, they just can't get it done on a consistent basis. But when I look at the names, in the lineup, there's some real good players, some tough kids, some good athletes. A player that I haven't mentioned much, Bryce Woods. I've coached him too.
Yeah.
That's a tough young man who's really a high character young man who's a good football player. And, guys like him, I've talked about Kayvon Gardner. These young men are tough and they're smart. And look, I still believe eventually they will turn it around.
Yeah, I really believe that barring that pick six, they were in line to get that win because they still had 20 some seconds. You get another play or two of any kind of positivity, maybe maybe 6 or 8 yards or so. Like Stacy said, they were trying to go down and get themselves in position to kick a game-winning field goal. They were down 2 points. They were down 15-13, and they had the ball on, I think, maybe right inside the 30. The reason it was 77 yards on the return is, Kyrell was, I think, scrambling around. So I think they had the ball right around the 30 or so. If you got to figure, they could get it down to like the 20 or 25 yard line. Angel Porras has a really good leg, and he's accurate too. And he, like Stacy said after the game, if we could have hit like maybe one more hitch, got out of bounds, and gave him a chance. That loss last week is different, but that's ifs and ands, and that's where we're at.
Well, again, as a team that's growing, you got to learn to be able to execute in those situations. Truth be told, Newcastle hasn't been in that situation the entire year, where it's the end of the game, they need about another 10 yards, and they need to be able to execute offensively to get it done. They haven't been there all year. They won their first game in a blowout, and they've been pretty much blown out by every other team since then. So it's part of the learning process. It's part of the experience process. You got to be there and, to learn how to get it done in those situations.
Injuries have really hit Newcastle hard this year, and Kayvon Gardner missed last week's game, and now possibly for the Aliquippa game, Tyler Leakins might be out as a result of last week's last play of the game. The pick six happened with when the play ended about 7.6 seconds left. They kicked off to Newcastle, and there was still 1.1 second left, I believe. And rather than taking a knee, Kyrell Harris threw an out pass or a screen pass toward the sideline, toward the Chartiers Valley side of the field. And when he was out of bounds and the game was over, there was a little pushing and shoving, and it got a little bit too far. There was a lot of discussion after the game, after the clock had expired, and the referees finally signaled. I believe it was unsportsmanlike on both teams. I don't think they limited it to one team, but and they gave the ejection signal, and Tyler Leakins kind of squatted down, and he was upset. You could tell he was upset. So I think if you connect the dots, I think Tyler Leakins was ejected. Stacy didn't know after the game. I talked to him tonight, Monday. He's still waiting for word. So if they go into that Aliquippa game without Kayvon Gardner, if he's not able to go, and then you're out Tyler Leakins, and then who knows how many other guys are injured, that's a really hamstrung team to go down to a school like Aliquippa, who's number one in the state in Class 4A, and that's a big ask, to go down there and come away with a win.
Yeah, it's too big of an ask. It's not going to happen. And, just getting back to that play, I don't think officials should be ejecting any player from the game when the gun sounds and the game's over. There's no need to do that. Get them separated, get them back to their sidelines. No reason to throw somebody out of the game in that situation. That's just my view. Game's over. Separate everybody and get them back to their sideline.
Yeah, like I said, the referee, you could see that signal. He wasn't mic'd up, so I'm not sure if it's possible that the referee, after a couple days to think about it, and maybe the referee cooling off from it, maybe could there be a possibility that he might call up Newcastle and say, look, the game was over, we won't eject them. I mean, could they go back on it? I mean, I don't think anybody really.
I think if there's an ejection, he has to file a report with the WPIAL, and maybe he thought more about it on his way home and never filed the report. If he didn't file the report, then I'm not sure that the ejection stands. But again, nobody should be ejected when the game's over. It's different if there's still time to play and a player's out of control, right, and you got to get him out of the game. But in that situation, just separate the players and let everybody go home.
I don't even think there was a a handshake at the end of the game. I think, if I remember right, I think Chartiers Valley walked off the field and and into their dressing area, and Newcastle met on the field for a final post-game talk for a little bit, and they went on into their locker room. I don't think
sometimes when there's a little scuffle at the end of the game, that's the best thing to do. Let everybody leave the field, and when that happens, sometimes that's just the best thing to do, and the coaches can sense that and let the teams go to their locker room.
Yeah, and so Aliquippa this week, they have 2 more games left after this. One of them's Blackhawks, so that'll be a rivalry game. And I would imagine, Larry, we can talk about this when it's Blackhawk week, but I got to imagine that Newcastle Blackhawk is like any other rivalry, whether you're talking Steelers, Browns, Raiders, Chiefs, whatever, you throw the records out the window type of deal.
Blackhawk, they've had some great games with Newcastle in the past several years. And, their program isn't in high gear either. It isn't the same Blackhawk program that it was 10, 15 years ago. And it's always been an evenly matched game. And I suspect it'll be the same this year. Blackhawk is struggling a little bit also.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else, Larry, on the Red Hurricane report?
No, it's nice to see that, the Hurricane was competitive. They will learn a little bit from their, late game experience when the game was still on the line. They haven't had that all year. And, I always tell my teams that I've coached, you learn a lot more in defeat than you do when you win. And, the type of defeats that Newcastle's experienced in the last 4 or 5 weeks before this past week, I'm not so sure you can learn anything about that. But in a game like this, when it went down to the wire and you needed to execute at the end, you're going to look at the tape. There's a little bit to be learned, and that learning is invaluable in moving forward, and hopefully when you're going to be competitive in each and every game you play moving forward.
All right. That is the Red Hurricane report. We'll keep an eye on the situation that involves Tyler Leakins. Hopefully he's able to play on Friday night, because he's a great student athlete, very athletic on the field, and that will add another dimension to Newcastle for sure. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we wish Newcastle the very best of luck on Friday night as they travel down to Aliquippa, which is a rival from years gone by. So it's a rivalry rekindled within the last couple of years.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other, be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.